Let's deep dive into this play, PAY glance out of Singleback Doubles. It's a play that I really don't see anybody talking about, but it has a lot of really obvious benefits and some hidden ones as well. I think it might be the best shot play in the game, so in this video we'll go over how to get one play scores against almost every type of coverage in the game and in multiple ways for each of them. So we have 16 in total. So where you'll find it is in actually a lot of different playbooks. I'm not going to really list them out here, but in Singleback Doubles you'll see it PAY glance. And although I won't really touch on it in this video, you also have a version in Singleback Y trips, which is almost identical. Just you have the slot receiver moved over to the other side. So likely your playbook has one of these two plays. Some of them, like the one I'm in right now, New York Jets, actually has both of them. So you can kind of cycle between them. And then on top of that, you have a number of decent plays within the formation right here. Power alert bubble is not bad. Z post Y out has some nice things, one of which might be in the next video or two. 0-1 trap, under center 0-1 trap is really good. Stretch with the bubble, of course, and this PA boot comeback is also kind of nice if you know how to run it, but we are going to focus on PAY glance right here, and we'll be going over all the different types of coverages, starting with just man coverage in general. So right here I'll go Mike Blitz 0 at a nickel 3-3-5 wide, and then PAY glance Singleback Doubles. So in terms of personnel, if you're running this type of play, really just speed across the board. Doesn't need to be faster than anybody on the defense side of the ball. Just can't have really slow guys, which is obvious. I think if you're playing Ultimate Team, you generally want all the fastest guys anyway. And then quarterback, although you don't absolutely need it, gunslinger definitely helps out. But that's really all you need to know. Otherwise, let's get into the play. So let's just start with simple off coverage without safety help over the top. So whether that's cover 0 or cover 1. This route from the left wide receiver over there has a really nice double move. I think it's actually the best double move in the game. I think it's pretty much 100% success rate. The corner, even if he has one step ahead, like Jalen Ramsey in this case, he'll bite down on it, and then he'll just be a little bit too late to react and accelerate to the second move. You also have a double move on the right, which isn't really as good, but there's some interesting things with that later on in the video. The one important thing is just don't have the other receivers running into that area, so you might want to say block or do something with the tight end. This little seamer tends to get out of the way, but you could also just hot route that to a slant or whatever you want. And then you'll see right here, if you have a little bit of time in the pocket, that receiver will get open over the top. So obviously we had a little bit of pressure come in there. So, even if you are blocking a lot of guys, sometimes guys will come in, just the nature of protection, but you see that easy over the top one play score. And again, that's Jalen Ramsey. I mean, I have Hopkins right here, who's really top-notch receiver, but doesn't need to be 99 overall. And then this, like I mentioned here, this seamer does a good job of getting those other defenders out of the way anyway, so you don't necessarily need to slant him or whatever. You can just do this over and over again and get your score over the top. So that route will be really good for you against off-man coverage. Against press, it kind of gets a little bit muddy, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Against really any type of, whether it's press or off-man, as long as there's no deep zone defender, this tight end glance route does a really good job. Somewhere between kind of a slant and a post. It's a really sharp cut, and if he has high route running, I'm not sure if there's a threshold involved there, but it might be worth looking into. But if he has nice high route running, he's going to just torch his man defender, who's likely, because it's the tight end, it's likely not going to have one step ahead or anything like that. So right here, again, we're just cover 0. We're assuming the user doesn't tag onto that glance and carry that up the field, which is definitely a possibility, but potentially the play action can help with that, especially against some of these really aggressive guys. Then take these other receivers out of the way so they don't get in the way. Slant flant is a nice combination, and you'll see here Kelsey just gets way open over the top, and we can just rack catch that for an easy score. And likewise, that will work against cover 2 man, where you see things like this. Even a deep third, you just need to wait a little bit for him to clear, and he should be okay. And you just see again all this space right here over the top, over the shoulder, and into the end zone. Okay, so now let's start dealing with press coverage. I mean, the glance route, you can't press that, so you should be good, but let's talk about the other guys. So there is a little bit of a trick here, and this doesn't just apply for this play, but just plays in general. If you want to get open over the top against these press coverages, you just need to look at the shading of the defensive backs. So if they have a heavy inside shade, like let's look at the interaction on the right here. You see that outside foot of the corner, you can use that vertical route as kind of a guide. If he's well within that, that means it's a really strong inside shade that you'll see either manually shaded or the default shading for cover 0. Once you see that, you want to look towards your receiver that's on the line of scrimmage. So right here, that is this guy, DeAndre Hopkins, or you could potentially even motion the tight end out, and this receiver over here will be on the line of scrimmage, but then that kind of messes up with this particular formation. So just to keep it simple, we're going to look towards Hopkins. And what we'll do is we'll put him on a fade or a streak, take the other guys away, obviously, and he will win pretty much every time, even against the likes of Jalen Ramsey. You can do that over and over again, and that'll be your free touchdown. But, and you know, I have to stress this, you really do have to look at the alignments. So if they press, and if they shade outside, which by the way is a nice tell that they're in man coverage, you do not want to look towards that receiver. Or if they're, say, in cover 2 man, which by default has more of a head-up alignment, you'll want to avoid that. So let me just show you right here, and let me just take the safety out of the play. Even with Hopkins in the zone, likely he won't get open over the top. He gets a little bit open here, but it is a little bit closer. But again, if they have that strong outside shade, it'll just be a much better chance right here, and you'll get much more separation with that fade. You see here, like we have 5 yards of separation at least. Then if you have more of a even alignment, like shaded outside cover 0 or just cover 2 man, where it's not as strong of an inside shade, and you can just look at that outside foot of the DB on Mike Evans right there. It's actually on that vertical route rather than inside of it. So I think that's enough of a non-inside shade that you would not want to look towards the receiver on the line of scrimmage. You'll look towards the receiver off the line of scrimmage. And you can either streak him or you can leave the regular double move route. They're both going to be kind of pretty much the same thing. You'll see that he gets decent separation over the top, and then you can just rat catch that enough to get your score. In that case, I actually like to run the deep out ability on there. So in some cases, even if you have a step on the DB, once you get the ball in your hands, they can kind of knock it out a little bit. But if you have that ability, as long as your guy gets his hands on the ball, he's definitely going to catch it. So something to think about there, but really the most important thing to know is depending on the shade of the cornerback, if he's strong inside, look towards the receiver on the line of scrimmage, and you'll want to fade him. If he's even or outside shade, look towards the receiver off the line of scrimmage, and then you can just simply streak him. I don't think a fade is useful in that case. And then we can look at press coverage, but shaded over the top. Let me just make sure the pressure doesn't come in here. But yeah, so press coverage shaded over the top, so we can't exploit that that beat press animation. But because there is no press, the double move over here will get open over the top, and even sometimes the double move over here, but it's definitely not as reliable. So let me just bring these guys into block, take this guy out of the way, and then you'll see your receiver gets open over. It doesn't get as much separation, but enough to get your one-play score. And then the last thing to consider against man coverage is against guys that base out of cover 2 man. So even though they're playing cover 2 man, the better players will likely do something with their safeties, either putting them in flats or maybe using them themselves, particularly if you have a strong run game. They might bring one of those guys down. Because cover 2 man is default shaded underneath, you can actually get open over the top with just a simple tight end streak route. And I know like the alignment of the guy that's in man coverage is bad here, but even if it's like a nickel front and he's kind of 5 yards back, it works just as well, as long as you have a little bit of speed, and as long as they're not shading over the top. In which case, some people might do, but then of course, because they're shading over the top, you can hit routes underneath, like slant routes and things like that. And I can get this guy out of the way, and you'll see he'll just blow past his guy, and you can just hit him over the top right there for your one-play score. Now, Kelsey's not the fastest guy, and in some cases in Ultimate Team, it's tough to kind of match up the tight ends with some of the safeties these guys are putting at linebacker. So in some cases, actually, you might want to avoid that. But, if you see the advantage there, you might as well use it. If they're not using safeties over the top, they're using default press cover 2 man, you will be able to beat them over the top. The reason why it doesn't work over at the corner spot here is because that jam animation essentially puts them back in the right place. But if they don't get a jam, they're going to be in a trail technique, which, they should. But in this case, most guys aren't having help over the top, and you should be able to just hit it right over the top. So that's man coverage for you. Quite a few options there, really from everything. And even actually the seam route can get open over the top too, but a lot of times people put those deep third defenders, in which case maybe you'll just avoid it altogether. Okay, and then just a couple plays for cover 2. We're still in nickel 3-5 wide right here, which can sometimes make things difficult in terms of reading the defense. But if you know what your opponent's in, you can definitely run the right setup for that. So for cover 2, we have a couple options. We have this seam route, which does a really good job at splitting the safeties. And then we can turn the far wide receiver into the fade to get open deep down the sidelines. So if your opponent is using the middle linebacker, usually you can suck him in with the play action, and usually they don't really cover the seam all the way to the middle of the field. They might bite on this tight end glance route, in which case you can just hit it over the top in between the safeties, or even if they just leave that guy as it is in the mid read, you should be able to hit them over the top. So you get the play action right here, and eventually he'll leave, and you can just possession catch that or even rack catch that up the field for a score. If you don't want to do that, or if they're covering that well, if they're running the deep third, you can also run the fade to the field right here. And because it's play action, he will usually get completely free right there, and you can do kind of the swerve catch type of thing to get up the field and into the end zone. And what's great about the play action right here is that it allows the receiver to bypass the corner without getting a proper jam. So that means you're getting up the field and wider earlier, so the safety will never be able to get there. And again, just make sure he's set to the field so you have all this room to grow or to work with. And then if you have the gunslinger, you can fit that in really easily. And if you're a little bit good with the kind of rack swerve type of thing, you could squeeze it in the pylon right there. And even if they're running really deep cloud flats, like 25, 30 yards, the play action does a great job at holding that corner just enough so you can get past him and down the sidelines. So if they're running, I just changed it here before the play, set the cloud flats to 30 yards, and I can even press the corner, back off the safety a little bit, back to his regular spot. And then again, I'm just fading the wide receiver, the wide guy to the left right there, running my play action, outside pass lead. If I could rack catch that, I'd take that into the end zone. Again, just one more time here for the sake of actually getting it down. You see right there, we're able to get that huge chunk of space. So that's it for cover 2. Really, really simple. 2 options, either right down the middle of the field or to the sideline. You don't see too much cover 2 these days, but if you do see it, if they just check into it and you see that cover 2 alignment, definitely try it because it's likely a big play. Cover 3, there are a ton of options, but it's also what makes it kind of tough against cover 3 is that there's so many different subtle ways to run cover 3 that there isn't really one global way to run it. So I'm just going to start with basic stock cover 3, single high look without any sort of adjustments. The type of defense you'll see against the first few people you play on Weekend League. And this could be a great play to just win the game quickly and move on. I think I showed examples of this before, but an easy way to score here is just putting the tight end on a streak route right here. And you can leave the receiver here on the double move, or you can put him on a comeback, just enough to hold that corner. But just for the sake of this play, I'll leave him on the double move. I'll put the tight end on a streak right here. And what you can do is just throw it over the top right there and rack that into the end zone. So it's cool that the double move kind of holds the corner, but likely the comeback really does a much better job at that, just to give you more space to work with right here, so that corner really is nowhere near the ball when you throw it. And you can also do it to the left side, so I can put the comeback over here, and I would streak Thielen right here, streak the tight end just to hold the free safety, and what you'll see is this inside release, and then you throw an outside pass lead, and you get your one play score to the left as well. Now, if they run deep halves to either of the sides, you cannot do any of these. So you will not be able to hit the tight end. You won't be able to run the seam. So you don't really have anything to work with there, unfortunately. But you can kind of play around. If you have Gunslinger and if you have the deep out ability on the wide receiver right here, you can sometimes, because he's so delayed, you can sometimes squeeze that in there, but it's not really something I'd bank on. And before I move on to the cover 3 types of adjustments that you'll see from the better players, let's just go to quickly Singleback Y trips, the version right here against just, again, basic cover 3 sky. You can get the tight end open over the top with this glance route if you just curl the near receiver over here. This will linebacker will match him unless the user is defending them themselves, or if they're doing things like hard flats or cloud flats, which you don't see as much anymore. But as long as this guy doesn't match, you'll have the tight end completely free over the top right here. And even when the will matches, you can still beat him over the top, but it's just a bit tighter. More likely what you'll see though is this type of too high with the pressed look, and you'll see these guys dropping into deep flats 20-25 yards or so, and then just random adjustments underneath like extra flat defenders or man defenders or things like that. But what we can do, there's still a number of things we can do, but they're just a little bit different. One really interesting thing that you can do is if you're coming up against these press cover 3 guys, particularly if they're base out of it, a lot of times they'll just deep halve their guys to be a little bit more safe, so you can't get those routes down the seam. But if you just streak the near side receiver here that's off the line of scrimmage, so he has to be off the line of scrimmage, you can just run this for one of your first plays just to check if they're in a deep halve. If they are, he transitions poorly and you can hit it over the top. So I threw that a little bit late there. But if you're able to, and this might be better to run not so close to the end zone, but if you're able to see that, and you're able to see that poor transition, you can just throw that over the top right there and get your score over the top. Or if you do that and you see the corner transition nicely, that means they are running just a straight up deep third over there, in which case, maybe I should get rid of, oh no, it's not on the zone. You can run the tight end. And against these too high looks, usually the deep safety is on the side of the nickel. So the tight end will have even more room to work with right here. So you have that deep flat defender, but he's never going to be able to get up the seam. Or in this particular case where they have the deep third defender over, you can also flip your formation so you have the tight end set to the field, so you can give him even more room to work with right here. So you're just running him right up the seam. Now you have to kind of bank on the user not carrying that. But again, hopefully the play action helps just enough to get you over the top. Or you could potentially run one of these guys underneath to either hold them or to provide you with another option should the user leave with that. But what's good about this is that even if they're running a deep half over here, you don't really need to think if they're in a half or a third. Your guy will still have so much space to work with right here that it really doesn't matter. So that's cover 3. There's still some subtleties involved there in terms of when they're pressed, when they're playing zone drop adjustments, when they're doing certain deep half, deep third adjustments. But by and large, I think those are some of the convenient things that you can remember to attack these different types of cover 3 you see. And then just for the sake of covering all our bases, we can also go against cover 3 match right here, which you really don't see often. But if it's a straight up cover 3 match and they're not doing zone drop adjustments, these double moves will still get open over the top. The only thing is that you need to make sure that the seam defender actually matches. So whether that's just letting the seam receiver go over the top or just to make sure he doesn't get in the way, you can put him on a little curl here. Now this is really specific if you know for sure they're in cover 3 match, which isn't super common, but again, you can throw that over the top. And likewise against cover 4 quarters or cover 4 palms, if they are actually matching, again, get these guys out of the way. Your double move should work. I think to either side. I think actually this side works a little bit better. But, you know, how often do you really see cover 3 match and cover 4 quarters, at least in Ultimate Team? It's pretty rare. But yeah, by and large, I think really it stems from the many man beaters you have with this glance route. The double move is nice. And then the nice little tip I gave you on, depending on the cornerback leverage, you'll go to either the receiver on the boundary, or sorry, on the line of scrimmage or off the line of scrimmage. And if they're shading over the top, well, again, you still have the glance and you still have the double move. Really a lot of nice things going for you. Against cover 2, kind of a rare look, but you got 2 really great options. And then cover 3, it's kind of tough to decipher sometimes, but a lot of good things there. Actually, the one little tip I gave you on, you know, if they're running a deep half over there, it's really not only for this formation. You can go to any formation. As long as your receiver is off the line of scrimmage, he won't get a little ghost phantom bump, and he'll just run right at that guy. And these deep halves tend to transition slower, so usually they're going to get beat even by slightly slower receivers. Okay, so that's it for this one. So that's really 16 different ways that you can attack these different coverages with just one play, and then you can even mix it up with a trips version of this, and you got yourself a lot of big play potential. Okay, so that's it for this one, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.